So guys, tonight's webinar is specifically looking at how can we improve retention of the ball. So that's the specific what we're looking for. As I said earlier on, in terms of the LGFA YouTube channel, we have a lot of other webinars that will probably complement this one as well. So you'll notice if you look at all the other webinars like forward play, counteracting opposition tactics, patterns of play, there's a lot of webinars we've done previously that would actually complement tonight. So I would not just take this webinar in isolation. If you look back in the other webinars, there's a nice flow to them all. So there's only one more webinar left from a coach education perspective in the webinar series, and that's mind yourself as a coach during the season. And I suppose, how do we look after ourselves with all the hustle and bustle that's going on with private life, with work, with coaching sessions? How do we manage and balance all those things? That's something we'll be looking at over the coming weeks. And to book on that as normal, just go on to ladiesgaelic.ie/learn/upcoming webinars/ and you just book your book on same, and we'll take from there. So our outcomes for tonight, basis for you to identify key indicators associated with the retention of the ball, and we'll look again at a few strategies and practices that you can do to assist you with retention of the ball. Okay, so we'll look at that as well, and hope you can go away with one or two ideas that you'll be able to implement in your sessions going forward. But before we begin, everything that we do in webinars, it comes from experience of ourselves as coaches, obviously, and the knowledge that we've gained through being involved in ladies Gaelic football and other sports, and involved in the coach education as coach developers as well. But at the end of the day, we're very reliant on research, and research informs a lot of stuff that we do. And I want to make a particular mention to Glenn Kelly. Glenn Kelly and his colleagues in TUD, in the Technology University of Dublin, are doing an awful lot of great work around ladies Gaelic football and research in that area. And he has just published a paper looking at the successful performance of elite ladies Gaelic football teams. I would advocate everybody, if you there you are, guys, free copies available. Just link in with Glenn, and he has his Twitter page there as well. Or if you want to get it off myself, just email myself and I'll send the paper on to you. It's a great study in relation to, I suppose, that informs how we go about our coaching, in particular with ladies Gaelic football teams. It's a great read, and he's doing some other work at the moment as well around possession stakes. So please, guys, over the coming weeks, if you want to look at that, please do. But it also informs a lot of what we're doing here in the webinars as well. I just think it's important that we mention that as well. Because research informs a lot of what we do from a coach education perspective in ladies Gaelic football. But before we start, and this again, all this stuff is coming from Glenn's research. And as I say, guys, at any stage, anytime you get an opportunity, give a look over it. But what are we learning from this slide here and from Glenn's research? What we're learning is winning teams have more possessions of the ball than losing teams. Very simple. Therefore, they get more attacks, they have more shots on target, and ultimately they have more scores. It's self-explanatory. So winning teams have more possession of the ball, so therefore they're allowed to do a lot more things in terms of attacking, in terms of shots, in terms of score. But the other point I'd like to hear out here, and it's on the right-hand side, is the productivity. Look at that there. Winning teams are more, shall I say, productive with their possession. They're more efficient with their possession. And this is key. For every 10 possessions in ladies Gaelic football, the winning teams are getting 3.5, nearly 3.5, 4 scores out of 10. But look at the losing teams, they're only averaging 2.5. So there's a big difference there in terms of the efficiency on the ball and having productivity in terms of possession. The key to this, and what I was learning from it, is the importance of the winning teams are very clinical, very efficient winning possession. And in ladies football, what Glenn is noticing is goals are key. Goals are golden in ladies Gaelic football. And what Glenn has kind of told us that when teams get in between the 30-meter, 21-meter line, it's like goal is on their mind. And that's something to be very much aware of. He's mentioned on 3 occasions, actually, the productivity of a losing team was higher than the winning team. But what was the difference? The difference was the winning team got goals. That's the key. And I think that's a good learning in terms of what we're trying to do here. So hence, what Glenn is advocating is, instead of the productivity in terms of score, he said, is getting the productivity, goal productivity in terms of, I suppose, all scores all together, is that a better metric for ladies football in terms of the outcome from our possession stakes. So I just think there's key learning here in this, and it's very interesting. I don't know what's your thoughts on that, Vinny, in terms of just these key stats that come down the road.
I think that, like, I mean, if I'm looking at this as just a casual observer, like, I mean, the stats say that a winning team will have 52% possession, and Glenn kindly supplied those stats for us, and the losing team will have 48. Again, and any casual sports fan, I suppose, whether you're watching soccer or anything else, you will always pay attention to the possession stakes. But that doesn't, as you said, doesn't always calculate into a successful performance or successful outcomes from each play, or each 10 plays, as the study suggests there. However, it does give you key metrics and key indicators as to the trends throughout the game. As we would see there with winning performances, look at that, 36 attacks versus 29. And I suppose those 36 attacks versus 29, that could be the key difference from the difference in metrics of the possession. So it's the team who is retaining the ball in different areas of the field, in different phases of play, who are going to create those opportunities in attacks, shots, scores, and again, as you mentioned, William, overall productivity in possessions.
Yeah, I just think it's very interesting. We go through a few more. It just sets the scene for what we're doing tonight. And look, guys, we're not going to go through this in detail. We're just going to show you. And from this slide, what am I taking from this slide? This is interesting because this all relates to what we're doing now in a few minutes, and the slides are going to come up. And losing teams have more kickouts than winning teams. That makes sense because of the winning teams have more shots, they have more kickouts. They have at least 6 more kickouts than the winning team. So, whoa. So it's very important that when if there's 6 more kickouts, how we retain possession from our kickouts and the phases that apply after that are very important. He was saying winners retain the ball. I know it's 13 out of their own, say out of 17 shots, 17 scores, as we outlined the other one. They retain the ball 13 times of their own kickout. They lose 4, while losers retain 16 of their own kickout and they lose 6. So that's telling me something there. That okay, even the losing teams are winning primary ball from their own kickout, but what is happening in the second phase or the third phase? Why are they losing that play, that retention of the ball, which is something we need to think about, and we'll hit it again later on. So I just think that's important to note. But also, and this is probably just, I suppose, helps this point, winning teams win higher percentage of, they convert an awful lot of winning over the opposition kickouts to scores. So they have a higher percentage in terms of converting the opposition kickouts to scores. So losing kickouts they have 6 more kickouts. Okay, we do know that losing teams retain the ball high, but obviously what's happening in the second or third phase is the issue, and therefore as a result, the opposing team have a higher conversion team, in particular the winning team, in terms of conversion to scores. I think that's very important in terms of our mindset, in terms of how we retain the ball from a kick out. It's not just the primary possession, it's the other phases. I don't know, Vinny, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, William, I think we've all seen coaches or been at training sessions where it will be the practice of the kick out and, you know, what's our strategy from the kick out.
Yeah.
And we see them and they go, and it seems like they interact with phase 1 and that seems to be it. And what they're not understanding is that in terms of coaching, you then need to be looking at phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 until there is a finished product, rather than just focusing on, okay, so we've won phase 1. Okay, so that's now our kick out strategy in terms of retaining the ball. That's it, sorted. We have it nailed. Coaches need to look beyond that. And what the stats here are telling us is that exact fact, that we need to be looking beyond just the first retention of the ball. We need to look further up the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of opposition might say, we might leave them win the ball, but no, we're going to push them into the area pitch where they don't want to win it. You know, so there's a lot more to it than just winning the primary ball. And I just think as coaches here tonight, just keep that in the back of your minds in terms of what we're doing later on. Again, it's very interesting stuff, right? You know, it's great. It really informs our coaching behavior. Okay, but look at this. And I always say at the end of the day, I suppose, we need to win a game. You have to get the ball over the bar or under the bar. It's the team that's most efficient with their possession is the most, I suppose, most important. And we go back to the stat earlier on about, and those are 3 occasions where the productivity level of a losing team was higher than a winning team. But the difference was the winning team were very clinical in terms of finishing for goals. But what's this telling us here? And this is interesting in terms of shooting and what we're trying to do. Is that, I suppose, and it goes back to the other point you in our kickouts, and I kind of hitting this as well, is that losing teams are winning longer than their winning teams. So the losing teams go longer. So it shows in kickouts that losing teams go longer, more than the winning teams. It seems that the retention from the shot kick out from both is fairly high, around the 84, 81% respectively. But the difference is that there's a greater reward, or there's a risk and reward here. That when teams go longer, it seems that there's a greater possession to shot ratio. And that's interesting. There's a greater shot to ratio. So I just think before I move on to the next one, that's a very interesting stat too, is that, okay, we do retain an awful lot of balls short, but obviously there's a more phased place to get to the other side of the pitch. But if we go longer, the research showed in today's football, the possession to shot ratio is much, much higher. So it's something just to think about. It's really, really, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you referenced there, William, if you do go short, your chances of retaining the ball inside the vicinity of your own goal, so to speak, is a lot higher. I think, as you said it's 80, 83, 84% with the figures that Glenn has provided us. However, it's again what I just referenced there. It's what happens after that. There is a risk then that you have the ball in that possession and in that position of the field, that you then have to go through a number of phases. And that's the risk that you're taking versus the reward of having a lower retention rate on going a little bit longer. But what that does then, it heightens the rate of a successful attack further up the pitch. You are then, I suppose you could say that you might be cutting out a couple of phases of play along the way. You are getting the ball further up the field, but there's a higher risk, there's a lower retention rate, a higher risk of losing the ball. So there is that kind of dichotomy there, that you can go short and be very safe with it, or go a little bit longer and have that risk of losing the ball, but there's a higher reward for taking that exact risk. So again, it's something to bear in mind when we are constructing our kick-out strategies in terms of retention of the ball. It's something to be very, very cognizant of when you are putting those structures together and those strategies together.
Exactly. I just think it's something to be thinking about, guys. Something to be thinking about, And in terms of the efficiency, I go back to the point I made earlier on, in terms of, in order to score, in order to win, you get the ball over the bar, under the bar. And as you say, guys, winning teams are hitting about 17 scores. I think Glenn was saying the average around is 314. Winning teams are getting around that average, and losing teams are hitting about 11 scores. So you're talking about, 2-5, or around that 2-8, 2-9, whatever it may be. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, the efficiency of the winning teams with their possession is way higher than the losing teams. And it makes sense, but really the goals are the one is what Glenn was highlighting, is that he noticed from in a ladies football context is the going for goals. If you're in between around that 20-21 meter line, it looks like they're going to go for goal rather than just take the point. And I just think that's a very, very interesting observation on this one, Vincent,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it just kind of goes out saying, obviously if your percentage is higher, you're obviously going to win the game. You see the 58 versus 48 there. And it is about taking that risk, but it's also about working that ball into those scoring areas and making sure that the retention of the ball is effective, and the players know where to get the ball to. So they're going to have a higher percentage of success rate in the average winning performance. And again, I suppose coupled with that, and we look at our own coaching, and everything that we're talking about this evening is evidence-based, William, and that's what's so fantastic about having this information at our fingertips, is that it's evidence-based. And if you can, maybe in your coaching, or your stats person can look at that and say, if we can get our scoring rate over the 58% or somewhere up around there, and if we can prevent the other team and keep them below that 48%, by average, we're probably going to win the game. So it's kind of common sense, but it's literally incredible information to have at our fingertips, and to be able to utilize in terms of having targets as a coach.
I think that's very good. So everyone here, even though this is the elite ladies football I suppose, the study was done over the 2019-2020 TG Cahir All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. You now have actually benchmark. You actually now have a set of targets across a range of areas in terms of ladies football that you can work off from your own team. And then, as outlined by Glenn in a previous webinar, if you've got a number of league games coming up, obviously you look at your metrics and how they do within that benchmark, but then what you'd probably do, develop yourself is your own benchmarking for your own team. And you look at what was good, what did the figures look like when good, what do the figures look like when you lost games. So I think, we did a previous webinar with Glenn around how to conduct game analysis during games. Give a look at it. It gives a bit more detail in it. But the figures really help us inform. It shouldn't, I suppose, override our coaching. It just informs our coaching and probably just helps us along the way in terms of improving performance. Hopefully you enjoy those. But again, guys, in the chat function, if you have any thoughts or ideas, please share. We'd love to hear from you. So what are we learning? What are we learning from, that's the point we're making. Having figures is one thing, but what are we really learning? We're learning that, if we are looking at kickouts from a retention point of view, it's not just the primary phase, it's the secondary phase, it's the third phase. Because some teams might allow you to win the kickout because they're happy for you to win it there. Because therefore you have to think about the second phase and third phase in order to retain the ball. And think about winning teams have a higher conversion rate from winning opposition kickouts to shot ratio. So think about that. So they may have a plan to counteract. On the ball, obviously, what you do when you win the ball, from back to front. How do we improve that? How do we ensure that we retain that ball in certain areas? And again, the timing of the game may affect that. And set plays. Do we think about this in terms of there's different cycles? So there could be 3 or 4 cycles within a certain play or in a certain possession that you may have to think about. So you might win the ball from the kick out. You might give a ball to the girl in the corner, wing forward, but she might get fouled. Now that's a different cycle in the same play. So do we think about, well, how do we retain ball from that cycle? I just think something we just don't think about enough, really, and we have to probably think a bit more about. I don't know, Vincent, is that making sense to people on the ground? And please, guys, share your thoughts, agree or disagree in the chat function.
Yeah, absolutely. With the kickouts, and as I referenced earlier on, you do see a lot of coaching sessions where it's literally just, okay, here's our strategy, or the strategy is only employed up until maybe the halfway line, and then the coach will pull it back again. It should be seen as an opportunity to move through the different phases in terms of your coaching sessions and saying, look, here's how we're going to transition the ball from goalkeeper right up to a successful play. And we're going to work the ball through those phases of that through retention and retaining that ball and successful retention of the ball. So I always think that a kick out should be looked and viewed as the first opportunity to launch an attack through the retention of the ball. And that's I think if we can, as coaches, if we can look at it through that sphere, we can change our own mindsets in terms of what way we're viewing the ball, I suppose, back in our own defense and looking at how we can retain that ball up the field.
And guys, share your thoughts, agree or disagree on what we're saying. I'm going to show you actually, Vinny, I'm going to show a clip here of Galway. And it probably backs up the point you're making around whereby obviously they worked in this. I don't know the tactics of these teams, but it looks to me that the goalkeeper knows what they're doing, but all the other players know what they're doing from phase 2 to phase 3, and this leads to a score. And it looks to me that they've really worked on winning possession of the ball, but then support play all the way up the pitch. And Monaghan had 7 players back at one stage, and they still got through. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens here. So they win the ball from the kick out. So it looks like we go forward with the ball. Good support play off the shoulder. Really good. We're moving forward. It's always forward. Look at the intensity. So number 9 is running off the shoulder in the loop. Again, look at it. It's all forward play. But watch this. There's 7 or 8 Monaghan players here. Bang. Score. I think that highlights your point, Vinny, that the kick out was an opportunity of the start of our attack, but it maybe just highlights that phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, that the Galway girls knew what they wanted to do. They knew they were going to run the ball. They probably thought the opposition were going to play maybe with numbers behind the ball. So what we're going to do is going to run the ball when we win it. We have good off the shoulder running, good loop running, and we'll have a late runner coming through to probably get that score. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Absolutely, yeah, and you can actually almost pick out the phases there, William, and then as you pointed out, the move there, I think it's by Olivia Dively. Like, I mean, the absolute slalom through maybe 6 players, but that was the point that obviously this was being coached into them. She knew that this was the opportunity, this was the time to pull the trigger. I'm going to go now. So this was obviously something that had been practiced in training. They moved the ball up through the phases and waited for that opportunity. And it was very direct in the end.
Yeah. We're just giving you an idea, guys. We're just backing up now what the stats were saying. And let's look at it in game scenarios. And then we go through a few strategies. Look at this. This is interesting. I think this is a very interesting one, really. Let's watch it. Let's watch it. So Armagh have the ball. And their strategy is, this is early in the second half. Kick, score. Okay, watch it. Again, what did I say earlier on? When you're inside the 20-meter line, bang, it's goal. Goals. But watch this now. This is later in the game. This is only with a minute and a half to go. Watch this. 1 minute, 7 seconds. So earlier in the half, it was get the ball, kick, and goal. Now there's a minute and a half left. Watch this. It's a different way of playing. They're retaining the ball really, really well. I think it's interesting, really, being into it, to see the contrast of the same team in the same half and how they play. Now, there's a foul coming up here, everyone. Look, we'll take it that it definitely is a frontal charge. That's a foul. But anyway, look, we'll move it on. But in terms of retaining the ball, being very clever, and the team being aware of that. Vinny, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, the contrast in the 2 clips is incredible, and I suppose if you look at one is at the just not the very start, but early in the second half, and one is when the countdown clock is really kind of a pinch point with a minute and a half to go, and they know that they are at a different point in the game. It's less direct. I suppose they're probably being a little bit more methodical and a little bit more cautious. And there's a little bit more movement, so it's not as direct as the first clip. The first clip is very, very, very direct and very very fast paced and fast moving, whereas I think that the second clip, as we said, is quite it's quite practiced, and it doesn't just it's not something that came off the cuff. This is how you retain a ball. It was obviously practiced on the training pitch. If you're in this type of situation, you're a couple of points up, you do not surrender possession. You must retain the pass, or retain the ball until the right pass is on.
And the right pass. And guys, the outcome was the same. 2 goals. When they got in around the 21-meter line, all that was in their mind is net, goals. Let's go back to research. It's telling us that goals in ladies football is very important. Okay, so that goal productivity is very important. Okay, so I just thought it was very interesting how the outcome was the same, but the players having the intelligence to say, right, okay, we're in a different phase of the game, right, a different way we're going to retain the ball to the earlier phase. In terms of we still retain the ball, we move the ball through the foot, whereby here I just thought it was a very, very intelligent football. But again, I agree with you. I think they practice this in their training in terms of these scenarios. Very clever ball by Amy Mackin over the top. Again, we're inside. Let's go for it.
It's incredible how not an external factor, but a factor within the game in terms of the time of the game and the scoreline, were able to dictate the style of play that the team employed in terms of retaining the ball. I just think it's incredibly stark when you see those 2 clips in the same game. But it was external factors, but the players knew how to adapt to those factors. I just think it was phenomenal.
Look at this one now. And we speak about retention of the ball. And we look at a few scenarios in it. We look at a few activities. Don't worry about that. We go to them. We have to understand the context here. The importance of the basics, implementing the basic skills of the game to retain a ball. So we'll see that. But remember that Glyn was saying that, that the winning teams overturn the opposition kick out, in a higher percentage. And that's something to think about. Okay. So, and I just play it here and we'll see how it plays out. So here we go. So Tyrone have the ball. They're coming out with it. But watch, unforced means there's no one around her. She gives a pass away Now she's making sure it's a score or is it a wide, whatever it is, but she's making sure the opposition are taking the next kick out. But watch then the next kick out. This backs up what Glenn is saying. Winning teams have a higher percentage of winning the opposition kick out, even though, as I said, guys, the opposition have 6 more kickouts, but winning teams have the ability to keep the pressure on winning opposition kickouts. So I don't know, in terms of Tyrone, number one, the unforced error of the poor hand pass, and number two, the inability to retain the ball from a long kick out. Again, Vincent, it's backing up what Glenn's saying, really, isn't it? Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, and again, for looking at the strategies that Tyrone were employing there, if you look at Mayo realized that if they employed a strategy in the second instance, that the first, they had won the ball in the second phase from the first kick out, but then the players themselves obviously knew that not just to maintain possession, but they had to gain it first of all. And what they did was they pushed up on the kick out, and they really made it difficult for the Tyrone goalkeeper and the Tyrone defence to be able to maintain that possession and move it up through the phases. So they kind of cut off the space. They realised the opportunity that was there, and that backs up what Glenn says, that the winning teams will turn over the ball more.
Yeah, they turn over the ball more, 100%. So just here, guys, we look at this one. Let's watch this. So Tyrone have possession of the ball. Okay, fouled. Remember I spoke about earlier on about it's the same possession. They stay the same possession. They have the ball, but it's a different cycle of play. But look what happens. Execution of the skill, but the decision making in that cycle. So it was the same possession. Obviously, it was a different cycle of the play in terms of it was a set play, but the execution of the skill, but also, do we know what we're doing in order to retain the ball at that time? Okay, there was a sweeper from Mayo. We played the ball into a narrow angle where the sweeper was. So again, retain the ball around set plays in different cycles of the play of possession is important too. So I just think it's important we highlight there's a lot of things that come around when we talk about retention of the ball. It's not just in general play. Vincent?
Yeah, and again, like, I mean, as you highlighted there, William, like, I mean, there was an opportunity there for Tyrone to retain the ball and to, go a different route and to create a successful attack scenario. But unfortunately, the decision making there, basically dictated that the ball was going to be turned over, and that they weren't going to have that successful attack because they didn't take the right option. And again, as coaches, we can't go out on the pitch and, when a player stand there ready to have a set play and direct them. So as coaches, we need to be teeing that up and preempting that on the training field, so the player understands that if they are in that situation again, that cannot occur, because we are going to end up on the wrong side of the statistics, and we're going to end up as the team who has had our ball turned over by the other team through our own fault, essentially.
And think about it. What Glenn's stats are saying was the winners turn over the ball. Okay, they're only turned over 48% of the time, where losing teams are turned over 56% of the time. So 48 are the winners are turned over. Losing teams are turned over 56% of the time. Now you might think that's very, short in terms of percentages, but in tight games and big games, there is a big difference in that. So it's just something very important to be aware of. So winners have more possession of the ball, less turnovers. That's the key. Okay, so how does this inform our training? That's you all want to know. Well, what can we do in our training over the coming weeks? And we're just going to give you ideas to think about. Okay, so what we're saying is here, guys, is first of all, this is just our plan. Please agree or disagree in the chat function. In order to any game you play, any pattern you play, any set piece you play, you need to be able to master the basics of the game first. Good handling, good hand passing, good kick passing. So what we would recommend in every session you do, you've got to do some sort of form of ball familiarization. That's getting ball on hand, working with your pairs or twos or threes, working on ball familiarization. I know Mick Bourne is involved in Dublin Senior Ladies Footballers. He's big into complex skills. Similar idea in terms of ball familiarization, in terms of getting hand on ball and getting used to playing the ball. So we'll show you this here and we'll let it run. And Vincent, you can talk about what your thoughts on this. I just think in every session, there needs to be some sort of ball familiarization, kicking, handling, soloing, because that will help with retention of the ball. If you have poor execution of the basic skills, I don't think you're going to retain the ball under pressure. What's your thoughts?
No, like I mean, one of the key factors of retaining the ball is being able to maintain that possession. The way you maintain the possession is being able to execute the skills of the game correctly, be that a bounce, a solo, a hand pass, or a kick pass. If your teammate is calling for the ball 7 yards away and you can't execute a successful economic execution of that skill, if you are making it difficult by either putting it up high or putting it down low and not giving them that opportunity to catch the ball at a height that suits them where they can lay it off or develop the play, or if you can't give a player a kick pass from 12 yards and you're literally surrendering possession to the other team because of your poor skill execution, then in the training field, you need to go back to these skills. You need to be embedding the skills of the game before you even think about ball retention. So you need to have a cohort and a team of players who can execute the skills of the game. And it's only after that the retention needs to follow. So the skills become automatic. The focus then shifts to being able to execute the skills of the game.
And off both left and right, all the time practicing off left hand, right hand, left leg, right leg. So therefore, you have 7 more options available to you. Okay, so therefore, when you're trying to retain the ball, if you're able to turn off your left, turn off your right, hand pass off your left, hand pass off your right, kick pass off your left, kick pass off your right, retain the ball in general play would be better because the player has 7 more options available to him. So it's just something to be very, very observant of. In every session, I would say, guys, you need to be practicing the basics of the skills at all times. There'll be 1 ball, 2 ball in pairs, and there's loads of different things you can be doing. Okay, this is just an example of a few skills that you can be practicing, and it can be done over 10 minutes in every session. Every session work on, left hand, left leg, right leg. I hope you found that beneficial. I'll just leave it run, and we'll see what else they're doing. This is the successful All-Ireland St. Sylvester's intermediate club team, by the way, just to let you know. So they're working on both sides, left and right, hand pass to the left, so the right. Again, it's just all ball familiarization. Okay, and there's loads of things you can add to this. There's loads of different things. Vinny, is there anything coming through the chat?
Yeah. Sarah McArdle. Thanks, Sarah. Love this warm up. Yeah, William, this is one of your babies, isn't it?
Well, no, I would be observing other coaches, and I'd be very into that in terms of Mick Bowen would be a very high influencer in terms of what he's doing. And I just think, it's just evolving, just trying different things and trying different things out. Yeah, it's so simple, yet so effective. Every session I do, guys, there's ball familiarization.
Look at the number of touches the players are.
How many touches they get? If they can master the basics, then how do I ask them to do more complex stuff down the road? Okay, so that's just, I think it's important to start with that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, set plays. So we're talking about set plays, and I think this is the 45 one, is it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's the 45. So remember we spoke out there about the Tyrone team, and they had a set play. And with the 45, obviously, if you can kick a 45 over the bar direct, it's 2 points. Okay. Now, if your team can't kick the ball direct over the bar from 45, do you just kick it anyway and hope for the best that you might win the ball around the big square? Or do you look to retain possession with the outcome to try and get a shot off? Okay, so some people don't go backwards. Okay, I understand that. That could be your philosophy. But if you go backwards to go forwards and you get score out of it, then Jesus, you get it, is it worth it? So let's look at this here. So here's a pattern that you could practice in your sessions. No one marking. Look, you go backwards. But the idea is that everybody knows their role. Your aim is to get a shot at target. So the point I'm making here is, if you know that you can't kick the ball over the bar from the 45-meter line to get 2 points, and you're hoping for the best to kick it into the 45, into this big square, and hoping for a break, then why not think differently about, well, okay, guys, how can we retain possession from this and hopefully get a shot off? Let's put a pattern of play in place. Vincent, is it as simple as that?
Yeah, I think it is, William. If you look at there, that pattern of play is being, it's been practiced uncontested. And I think that's a fantastic tool to be able to utilize, is the uncontested pattern of play, because it allows players to understand their role without having to worry about anything else, because it might just be that spatial awareness, where am I, where do I need to be, where do I need to receive the ball? it also, you cannot mitigate against what another team is going to do within a game. So you have to trust your players to be adaptable. So if you are saying, okay, so this is the pattern of play, but it is open to interpretation depending on what way the other team set up. So your players are smart. They will know that. And any coach who has prepared their team correctly will know that their players understand that here's what we practiced. It might not look identical to what we practiced, but it's the framework. And it's the framework to retain the ball.
100%. But all you're doing is you're thinking about how can we retain a ball. Remember I spoke earlier on, there's kickouts, there's set plays, and there's, on the ball in normal play. So therefore we have to think of not just on the ball, which we look at in a minute now, but we also have to think about set plays and how can we retain the ball from that and think about it. Here we go to recycling the ball. And listen, this is very interesting. Glenn was saying this to us. On average, okay, a ball in possession in ladies football, please in the chat function, how long do you think the ball is in play for? On average. And it's very interesting. In the chat function, what do you think? How long is the ball in play for on average in ladies football? So how long do players, team, no, Armagh held it for, 68 seconds. Okay, fair enough, that's different. But on average, guys, 28 seconds. Now, Glenn is doing more work on this in his research. So he's going to do a webinar on this for us over the coming months. But 28 seconds on average is ball in play. So think about our activities in training. Why are we doing activities for 3 or 4 minutes? Retain the ball for 3 or 4 minutes when we know, it's only about 30 minutes in play in general in league football. So does that influence our games that we play, our small-sided games, our retention, our ball retention games? Should it only be between, okay, can we retain the ball for 90 seconds? Is that more applicable to the game rather than 3 minutes? I don't know what your thoughts on that. And what we'll do is we'll look at kind of the pattern play here and we'll look at it. How can we get players? This is actually a 28-second clip, actually. How can the players retain the ball for 28 seconds and look to score? I don't know, what's your thoughts on that, Vinny?
Yeah, speaking to Glenn and then reading his evidence was an incredible eye opener for me as a coach, because in a session in terms of retaining the ball, I would be saying to my players, okay, let's try and get 5 passes in a row. Yeah. Let's try and get 4 passes in a row, 3 passes. But this is more evidence-based. This is more a thinking coach's way of going about it in terms of putting the time frame on it, or and looking at how long the ball is in play, because this is evidence. This is actual from elite level ladies Gaelic football. So 28 seconds or circa that, wherever it is. And it's just got me completely thinking about next time I go out to coach about what way I'm going to go about setting up my exercise in terms of wanting to retain the ball, for how long I want those players to retain the ball. If I'm doing 5 passes in a row, 2 players could stand there hand passing each other before anybody even tackles them. So I'm not giving the players the correct opportunity within the session to replicate the evidence that's coming through from the games. So in having this information, available to me now, and I'm hoping that anybody who's watching this webinar now has this information, it will inform the way I'm going to go out and coach next week, and it will completely change what I'm doing.
And here is a game, okay? This actually clip is only 28 seconds. Now, it wasn't planned, guys. This is just a recycle the ball. How do we recycle the ball, move to the wing, loop, get it back to center, let's put a bit of pace into it. Okay, you're probably saying, well, William, how does that apply to your training session when we play an overload game? So we have 10 defenders, 8 forwards. Okay, guys, can we orchestrate a score in that scenario? But if we did the previous pattern about, retaining the ball, moving the ball with patience, moving through the hands really, really efficiently, okay, then we'll see, can we probe this 10-player defense and get a shot off? Our aim is always, let's go back to the point, is to get a score, is to put the ball over the bar or under the bar. The point I'm making here is, however, that pattern, or even here in this game when we're now under pressure, if you can't execute the basics well off both sides of the body, it could break down. So that's important to notice. The basics of the skills are number 1. Apply whatever pattern you're trying to do in terms of how do we play the ball wide or narrow or whatever it may be, and then put them into a scenario whereby, well, can they execute this now in a scenario in our training where we're playing 8v10, 8v10. So it's just another opportunity to probably do it without opposition and then with opposition. But again, it's just getting players thinking about, well, in order to mind the ball, we got to move the ball quickly through the hands. We got to probe. We got to have off the shoulder. We have to move the ball from wing to center, wherever it may be. We have to have pace, but the basics are key. So I would guarantee you, any of those activities will break down if girls can't master skills of both sides of the body. Okay, I hope that helps. Let's go to the next one. So remember we spoke about earlier on, and Glenn was saying about, we spoke about the phases. And we were saying, okay, it's great to win the primary possession, but what's secondary, third phase, fourth phase? Can we think about our kick out being the first port of attack? So here's a pattern of play that you could practice. Okay, now this is just a basic, this is a stacking one whereby there's 2 and 2 on up top. So it's 2, 2, 2 up top, okay? But that's a different animal. But in terms of this, what we're trying to do here is, okay, I'm going to get into the mindset of the players. This is how we're going to move to retain the ball initially. Then when we retain the ball, this is how we're going to move the ball up the pitch. But number 2 is, if we can't execute a good 20-meter kick, it's going to break down. If we don't do a good run, it's going to break down. So it's very important. A lot of other factors come into it. Okay, here we go. So watch it. So she runs to the wing, she wins the ball. The girl in the wing is going to run into center to win that ball. She's moving. The 2 girls on the half forward split. We're going to play a diagonal ball. 2 girls inside split. We're going to play it. It's just the concept of this is how we could retain. This is very similar to our Maz attack, whereby they use the kick, and the goal or the score. So all we're trying to show you here is that you have to think about phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. How we move that ball through the phases in order to get a score above. And that's the key to winning games, is getting a score above. Vincent, is that too basic or complex?
It's literally it in a nutshell, William. Like, I mean, you have your starting point. You know where you want to get the ball to, and again, we go back to the key principle of what we're trying to achieve here tonight. It's the retention of the ball and having the strategy to do that in place to create a successful attack, goal to goal. Players know the role, they know where they need to get the ball to, and they know where it's going to be successful. That's it in a nutshell. And
also, in that one, I challenged him. I said, no fumbles. So I challenged no fumbles. But I also said, can we get the ball from back to front in 15 to 20 seconds? Okay, it's like that challenge him, okay? We don't. So again, like, we know the opposition are going to try to overcome that. We have to have our players to be thinking about phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And if they have an idea of what they're doing in those phases, they'll be able to adapt and be more creative when opposition comes on them. That's the point we're trying to make. So we have to have our players be very creative in their thinking and be adaptable and better decision making. So we have to present those scenarios. So hopefully that'll help you. So here are other activities you could do. Okay, so you could have, again, started with the goalkeeper on the left here with the footballs, and you could divide the pitch into 3 zones. Now you can have the difference of the space on this. You can have small space, big space. Okay, so you might say, right, defenders, you got to win the kick out from the goalkeeper. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to get the ball from your defense into the middle area. Okay, so now the middle area have to win the ball. I'm going to say to the middle area, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to get the ball from the middle area or less into the forward zone. Then the forward on the ball, I'm going to give you 8 seconds by the time we win possession to get that ball, orchestrate a score, and over the bar. Okay, so now we've 3 different possession games going on, all applicable to where they play in their own in the game, but also then the retention of the ball. But also the mindset is, how do we move the ball from goalkeeper to defense to midfield to attack? And we're linking it all together. It's a nice game to work on. You can decide on what space you use. You can have the full pitch if you're 15 on 15. You can have a smaller pitches going on, 2 smaller pitches with 3 zones, and work it like that. So you can think about the stepper model there. You can change the space to change the dynamic of the game. Vincent, thoughts?
Yeah, and I suppose you hit the nail on the head there, William. Stepper. Like, our stepper principles, if we look at a lot of what we're trying to achieve in terms of enabling our players to play in a fashion that works towards retention of the ball, that works towards the stats that are available to us, employing stepper in conditioning your games and activities will absolutely aid in that. And like, I mean, you look at the progression there, like, I mean, and you're kind of looking at the last activity there, you had goal to goal, and this is kind of it with a time limit on it as well. Opposition. Yeah, and an area like it absolutely activities like this and employing activities like this will 100% aid in enabling your players to retain that ball in your key areas of the field and launch those successful attacks.
And stepper is S for space. You might put in the chat function actually, Vinny. S for space, T for change the time. Can we get the ball from X, Y to Z in X amount of seconds? Or if we're playing a possession game, can you hold the ball for 28 seconds or 30 seconds or 90 seconds? Okay, so that's time. E for equipment. Do we need less footballs, more footballs, less cones, more cones? Players, P is for players. Do we have less players or more players? Okay, and then R is rules. You apply certain scenarios, certain rules to the game to challenge your players accordingly. Okay, let's look at this game. Now, this is like, these are small sided games, and we're just kind of getting into the context of how can we get our players comfortable on the ball when there's a small bit of opposition. So think about this game. There's 3 groups of 2. You can have different. You can have 3 groups of 4, whatever it is. You can have bigger space. Go back to our stepper model. But what I'm hearing is can the players in possession hold the ball for a certain amount of time before we kick pass across? So the idea is, can we mine the ball for X amount of time in a square while the tacklers are trying to get the ball off us? Okay, so let's watch it. It's a very simple game. Vinny, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to like kind of what I said earlier on. Like if I was employing a game like this in the training session in terms of working on retention of the ball, I would have started off saying, okay, it's 3 passes in a row. And what has informed me tonight and was informed me through the evidence that Glenn has supplied through his study has been that we need to employ the time. And we need to look at the time, and we need to put players in those scenarios where they understand, how much time they need on the ball, how much time that is the maximum that they're probably going to get within the game of ladies Gaelic football, because that's what the stats show us, and that's what the evidence is showing us as well. So again, just to go back to my earlier point, an activity like this is so important if you can introduce the time element into it.
Yeah, and exactly here, guys, what this also helps is that if you can't work off both sides of the body, you're in trouble. If you can't turn off both sides, you're in trouble. But movement is key. Movement to support the player on the ball. So I always say, always support the player on the ball. Again, it's just a simple game to work on possession of the ball, work in a small space, but also working on movement. It just goes through the basic principles. Let's go through another one. Here's another one. So here we have 3v1 at all times. But what I've done to change the intensity of the game here is that there's 5 or 6 waiting on the corner cone. So every 10 seconds, there's a new player coming in or less. Okay. So I only play this game go back to what are the demands of a game. Glenn is saying the ball is in position for more than 28 seconds. I'm not going to play this game more than 90 seconds because Armad did it for 68. Okay, so I'm not going to play this game for more than 90 seconds. But the idea is that can we retain the ball without being dispossessed within a certain time frame? But watch it here. The 3 players are constantly working, but there's 1 player coming in at all times looking to apply that pressure. So it's not the same player all the time. So it's keeping the intensity of the game up. The girls are moving the ball at pace. We want them moving off the shoulder. Again, so there's a different player coming in at all times, and they're changing the dynamic of the attack. So can we hold that ball for between 30 to 90 seconds? Again, we're applying the time that's applicable to the game. You might say, geez, Williams, 3v1, but it's still the concept of can we mind the ball in close proximity of the game. The other games we were showing you was more expansive in their dynamic. So that's we're just throwing 1 or 2 things here. So again, look, you have a different player coming in. Look, every 10 seconds, there's a different player coming in. She won the ball back. So before the 90 seconds, they actually got the ball off the team. So the aim is, can we retain that ball for a certain amount of time? I wouldn't play no more than 90 seconds because we have to think about the game as well and how long we'll be in possession of the ball. So this one, again, it could be over the river in terms of, again, the space could be big space, small space, depending on the number of players you have and also the ability of your players or the stage of development. I have a scenario here where one team has the ball in one box. They have, can we hold the ball for 20 seconds? And if we can hold the ball for 20 seconds, can you get the ball across to your teammates in the other box? And can they hold it for 20, 30 seconds? So again, I'm thinking about the game. I'm thinking about how long do I want my team to hold possession. It's a different dynamic now. It's 4v4, bigger area, bigger space, and also we have to get a kick pass in terms of transition of the ball. So again, it's just a different game. You've all played these, but think about why we're playing them, and then how do we challenge our players accordingly in terms of trying to encourage retaining the ball that's similar to a game scenario. Vincent.
Yeah, and absolutely. your first principle again, win the ball. So you have to gain possession before anything else. Then it's all about retain until you have hit that target of a time where you need to hold the ball. And then it's about moving the ball. And again, looking at how this fits into a match situation. Then you're transitioning the ball on. Okay, so you have held the ball for that particular amount of time, whatever it is that your coach requests. If it is that 20, 30 seconds, you've maintained the possession, keep retaining the ball, and then it's about that transition on. And that was repeated over and over, and then it's back to you again. So it's a constant reinforcement of the principles that we're trying to embed in our teams in terms of retaining, and then that transition on to hopefully a successful attack position.
Yeah, and you can change the game stepper model. I can change the space, the number of players. I can change the rules. Right, the person who kicks the ball can follow their pass and support the team on the other box. Okay, I can change the rules. Right, this time, when we kick the ball into the other box, I'm going to give you 10, 15 seconds to orchestrate a score. So there's loads of ways you can change the dynamic of the game to suit what you're trying to achieve. That's applicable to how you want your team to play. And that's very important as well. So go back to those previous webinars on patterns of play, counteracting team tactics, developing forward play. Geez, we have a load of webinars that will complement what we're trying to do here tonight as well. So it's just very important you're clear. So what are we learning tonight? The retention of the ball is not just the normal on-the-ball play. There's different cycles within a possession. It could be a 45, it could be a free, it could be a sideline ball. You think about that. How now do we retain the ball from that? We also think about on the ball, how we transition the ball from defense to attack. How does that look like? What do we need to do in terms of maintaining the ball? And like you saw Galway earlier on, they moved the ball from back to front with real pace, good support play off the shoulder, and ran at them on in defense, and they got their score. Think about Armagh. They moved the ball really well to the middle of the park. They kick, score. But when it needed to, they recycled the ball. But they still got the same outcome. They got a goal. Think about kickouts. That's another opportunity how to retain the ball. And it's not just the first phase, it's the second phase and the third phase that comes into it. Because we know that winning teams are very good at turning over opposition kickouts. So they might let you win the ball, but they might turn you over the minute you come down or you look to play the ball to the next player. But irrespective of all those things, if your players can't master the basics of the skills in terms of kicking, catching, turning off their left, turning off their right, running off the shoulder, running to space, then you're going to have a difficulty. So you have to master those basics first before you progress it on. You saw the patterns of play there. Okay, try patterns of play with no opposition. Then go to small-sided games. Then go to larger-sided games. Then go to full-sided games. There's so many ways you can do things. But at the end of the day, guys, everything that we did tonight came from the research that's been done in ladies football currently. And in particular, this study. And Glenn's going to look at that possessions at the moment, what's happening in possession. We're looking forward to getting Glenn back over the coming week. Now, Glenn did a webinar, as I said, specifically on how to conduct analysis during games. That webinar is available on our YouTube channel. Give a look at it. He gives some great insights as well. So, guys, over the coming weeks, give a look at this paper. Some really interesting stuff in it that will inform how your practice in terms of training. And also, if the girls get a better understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, they'll buy into it more as well. But also, it's a help for you in your benchmark. So, you have something now to work off. What are winning teams doing? What are losing teams doing? And how do you compare to that? And then over your analysis of 5 or 6 games, see how does that relate. And we're talking specifically about retention tonight. So thank you very much for your time. And Vincent, everybody before you go, please in the chat function, what's the one thing you took from tonight? And did you enjoy it, number one? And what's the one thing you took from the webinar? Vincent, if there's one thing you'd give advice to people before we leave, what would it be?
I would say, number one, use the information that's readily available there and allow it to influence your coaching. Allow it to influence how you're structuring your sessions and what you are trying to achieve with your players. It's certainly for me over the last number of weeks since I had a good read of the study. It's so eye-opening to see that a lot of what you possibly were doing in your own sessions wasn't as effective as possibly it could have been, or didn't relate as much to success in ladies Gaelic football as we possibly thought it did. So I would definitely advocate for anybody to go and have a real good read of the study that's readily available to you, and have a look at Glenn's work and Orna's work and Sharon and everybody else who contributed as well. So you know the evidence is there for you. It's about taking that and looking at the individual players that you have as well at your disposal, working on, again, as William referenced, those patterns of play from our last webinar that we conducted as well. Make sure you check those out as well, but utilize the information that's there. It's informed, educated coaching rather than blind, you know, just let's run a session tonight because we think we need to work on something. You know, try and cover all bases and try and hit those benchmarks. Try and really achieve some goals, some tangible goals with your players. And as William said, allow the players to understand and communicate this to the players that here's what we're looking for. And if you get buy-in off your players and they understand what you're trying to do in your sessions and why you're doing it, then that's half the battle won. There will be far more response on the pitch and far more response during your coaching sessions as well. So yeah, listen, I see the chat as the good few responses coming in the chat there as well. So I'm hoping that everybody gained as much from the webinar as we have from the information that's available, and make sure to share with your coaching team as well.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And just let you know, guys, we recorded the webinar tonight. They're all up under the coach education playlist of the LGFA YouTube channel. Give a look. There's about, I think, 31 videos up there now. Hopefully you're enjoying them. We'd love to hear your feedback on them as well, because we always want to try and improve ourselves as well, what we're doing. And we're hoping that you can relate to this information and bring it to your training tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. That's what we're always trying to achieve. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much, Vincent, for tonight and assisting with putting this presentation together. I know everybody else who support us along the way, in particular Glenn Kelly, for providing us with some great information, slides and stats. So on that note, guys, enjoy your evening and thank you very much for your time.